tonight as California is experiencing a stage 3 power emergency for the first time in almost 2 decades. This means that demand for energy is exceeding what's available, forcing power officials to cut electricity to some areas to avoid overwhelming the state's grid. Thanks for joining us tonight for Fox 40 News at 10. I'm Eric Harriman. Nikki is off tonight. All of this is, of course, coming right at the beginning of a very intense heat wave for us, which causes higher demand for power for obvious reasons, running that AC. Chief Meteorologist Christina Werner is tracking those conditions. We're going to hear from her in just a minute. But we want to start with those rolling outages that I just mentioned. They started in our area just after 7 o'clock tonight after demand for power got too high, and the California Independent System Operator, or Cal ISO, upgraded the emergency from a stage 2 to a stage 3. Tens of thousands of PG&E customers all across El Dorado County were left in the dark. Their power was just restored within the last hour and a half or so. Our photographer that was there says that he heard some neighbors cheering as that power came back on tonight. As you might imagine, that AC kicked back on. PG&E says that no further outages are planned for tonight. Other areas also dealt with outages this evening, and during those rising temperatures, there happened in Woodland and in Rockland. Fox 40's Eric Rucker was able to talk with neighbors who were impacted, as well as state power officials about what happened. He's joining us live now in Woodland with what they had to say. Eric.
And good evening to you, Eric. And as you just mentioned, PG&E, the corporate headquarters, tweeting out earlier on this evening that all these pre-planned power outages because of this emergency would be corrected and everybody would have power by around 11 o'clock tonight. As you see behind me right now, PG&E still working on this street in Woodland. We do not know the exact cause of why power went out here. We can tell you around 300 customers still without power tonight. And we also know that PG&E says that they expect to have power back up and running here by 11 o'clock. As for this emergency,
for the first time in nearly 20 years,
California
is in a state. For the first time in nearly 20 years, California is in a stage 3 power emergency. The significance: widespread power shutoffs across the state as power demand during this heat wave is now greater than the power supply. Ann Gonzalez is the spokesperson for the California ISO, or Independent System Operator.
We asked the utilities to implement their power disruption programs, PG&E, SoCal Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric.
During the hottest part of Friday, power was lost for thousands in Placer and Yolo counties.
Yeah, I was in the middle of a stream of a video.
Jim Barnes was giving an online music lesson from his home in Woodland at the time. He says he now has plans to head out of town if the power goes out again.
And if it all comes out worse, we'll actually end up going to Vacaville, where my parents live.
Gotcha. So you have backup plan.
Yeah.
Lori Johnson decided to take a walk as her home became powerless.
See what happens.
Oh, by the time you get back, maybe it'll be a little cooler.
Yeah, it's already cooled down a couple degrees. When I looked at the weather the last time, it was 106.
With high temps anticipated, the ISO saying tonight a request days ago for more power from other grids on the West Coast was denied.
That did not materialize. Regional nature of this heat wave means that there's less energy from other areas in the West to transfer over into California.
And again, everybody who had their power shut off, at least pre-planned or otherwise, is expected to get it back on by 11 o'clock tonight, and that includes the hundreds of people still without power here in Woodland. All right, so is this COVID-19 related? People staying at home, using more energy? Well, the ISO spokesperson that you heard from earlier on in that story says they can't say that, but what they can say is that the weekends, traditionally, people don't use as much power as they do on the weekdays, day like today. However, we know temperatures are going to remain high for a while. We're live in Woodland in Yolo County tonight. I'm Eric Rucker, Fox 40 News.
Eric, thank you. And as we mentioned a minute ago, the last time that a stage 3 power emergency was declared here in California, 19 years ago during the energy crisis, between 2000 and 2001, the state's energy reserves were very low, which led to market manipulation and higher electricity prices across the board. During peak times during January and May of 2001, there were several large-scale blackouts. That crisis ultimately caused PG&E to go into bankruptcy. Energy prices finally normalized that September. And Christina, that